The state primaries are 2 weeks away, and many of you might still be going through your ballots and selecting your candidates. This year we have a number of candidates who are running unopposed, and that includes Kern County Superintendent of Schools, Mary Barlow. She is joining us live in studio this morning to talk about the upcoming school year here in Kern County. So Mary, thank you so much for waking up bright and early with us this morning. We appreciate your time. Absolutely. Let's first just start with, we were just talking earlier during our commercial break, you and I were chatting about how we have seen a rise in fights on campuses in Kern County, especially in our high schools kind of throughout this past school year. So of course, there's a concern about safety for students and teachers. So are there any steps that you have in mind for taking to ensure that safety going into this next school year in the fall?
Absolutely. So I want to start with saying that every year schools need to develop a comprehensive school safety plan, and that school safety plan addresses many issues, including bullying, man-made disasters, natural disasters, and it allows students and staff to develop the resources that they need to mitigate these issues and to plan for them in advance. I will say that this has been a very challenging 2 years during the COVID pandemic, and as a result of it, we're seeing more social and emotional outcomes for students that are negatively impacting their ability to learn at school, their ability to socialize well, and their ability to handle their anger and just the other emotions that they've been traumatized by for the past 2 years.
It's absolutely, like you said, been so tough on our students. So obviously that ties into safety. Are there any steps being taken to support not just physical safety, but maybe kind of that mental health aspect as well that you mentioned?
Absolutely. So many school districts have expanded the number of behavioralists and specialists that they have on the campus, increased the amount of after-school supports as well as during school system supports to work directly with students and staff, of course, because they've also suffered from trauma during this past 2 years, and make sure that the classroom environment is welcoming, that everyone feels like they belong, that they have a safe place to go to report any incidents or concerns that they may have. Many of the districts have anonymous hotlines that they use. So there's a whole host of both state and local initiatives that directly address the school safety issue.
So like you just said, it's been a tough year for everyone, including the teachers too. And a lot of teachers have actually, as you know, left their positions. They've left working in education. So is there anything being done to both recruit teachers and also retain our teachers in Kern County?
Yes, we have at the state level quite a bit of additional funding that is being dedicated to recruitment and retention, looking at special areas like special education teachers, working with English language learners, working with math and science, because that's such an important thing. Locally, we have many initiatives that recruit students as early as high school and throughout college to take a look at what is it that they might want to pursue, and would it be a career in education. So we're working with all of our educational partners within Kern County, and that includes Kern Community College District and CSUB, to create these seamless pathways, if you will, for students to consider a career in education, which is, just going to say, the most rewarding education you could have.
You obviously have found your place that you would recommend. And so like we said, COVID-19 has just been quite the challenge for schools in all aspects. But one of the bigger challenges was those protocols that we were seeing with face masks and social distancing. So is there anything you can tell us about any possible protocols going into next year, and any plans that you have in place in case we see those protocols come back?
Absolutely. So when the protocols were in place, we completely support public health's recommendations. And you know that schools were the safest place really for students to be during the COVID pandemic because of the protocols, because we have mandatory requirements around students and staff, but particularly staff either being vaccinated or having proven that every week they're safe and free from the virus. We anticipate as we move into the fall, if there's another rise of some sort of the COVID pandemic or cases, that we may see some of those mitigating factors being reenacted by the state. We follow the public health department's regulations and guidelines, and we stand by and ready to reinstate some of those if necessary.
All right, well, Mary Barlow, Kern County Superintendent of Schools, we're talking about much more after this break, so stay with us. We are back now continuing our 2022 election coverage with Superintendent of Schools Mary Barlow. So just getting back into it before the break, we were talking a lot about the challenges, all sorts of challenges that the pandemic has created in our schools for staff, students, families, and part of that with parents and their kids is seeing that learning loss that really came from school going virtual. Kids were at home on Zoom. So what have you seen when it comes to learning loss, and what plan is there to kind of counteract that?
Well, I can tell you it's real. I can tell you that the most important thing that we've done is make sure that the students are back in the classroom with their peers and with their teachers. There's just so much more value in that in-person instruction. We have found that one of the initiatives that we started back in 2017 called the Kern Education Pledge absolutely helped us launch and pivot into the distance learning platforms that we used, and to be able to use the Kern Integrated Data System to collect data and give us early warning systems about how students were performing, where they needed some additional supports, and then direct those resources, additional teacher time, tutor time, that type of thing, to students to ensure that they could get back on track.
And so heading into the new school year in fall, we are hoping and assuming they'll be back in the classroom.
Yes.
So are there any kind of specific steps in that work you were already doing, any steps you're taking to kind of boost our kids up going into this new school year in light of the pandemic?
Absolutely. So we have something called the Early Learning Opportunity Program. It's statewide. It extends the day for school students. It provides intersession opportunities for additional enrichment. We, through the Kern Education Pledge, which is an innovative program, all 46 districts in the county, along with our Institutes of Higher Education, CSUB, Kern Community College District, Taft, have all agreed to work together. So we have separate working groups that meet regularly, and they focus on situations like academic learning in English language arts, in mathematics, and then making sure that students are college and career ready when they exit high school. Ultimately, the information and the work groups have set up plans and supports across the county so that regardless of the zip code in which a student resides, they will get the support they need. So that's our plans for next year. We were the first county, or the last county, to shut our doors and the first county to open our doors to students in the classroom. We know how important that is. We know it's the most important thing, that students have time in a classroom with someone who cares about them to make sure that they make a difference in their lives.
And so you just mentioned the Kern Education Pledge and how you were already doing a lot of work with it pre-COVID and even now during the pandemic. So could you just tell us a little more about what that pledge is and how it ties into the upcoming school year?
Sure. So again, 2017 is when we signed it. It is all about all of us together making sure that students are successful from pre-K all the way through into their career. And it makes sure that we have a seamless system as students transition from one education system to another, that they fully understand what they need to do, whether they're in elementary, middle school, high school, or college, in order to end in the career of their choice, and a good paying career. We're waiting right now to hear if we will be successful for a $20 million grant that we collaboratively signed it's the first of its kind, and we should find out in a few days if that has been successful.
Very exciting. Well,
Yes.
Thank you so much for joining us this morning, telling us all about the work you've been doing and will continue to do. I know you're running unopposed, but I'm sure it's very helpful for voters to hear these upcoming plans, because like we said, it's been quite the past 2 years,
Yes, it
so
has
unprecedented, and hopefully going into next year things are a little calmer for everyone.
Absolutely.
So we appreciate your time this morning, and we'll have this interview on our website if you'd like to catch up on it. But for